So
Sure.
first of all, I want to thank you all for signing up and for logging in here for our first On Task podcast. What we want to talk about today is how to make the most of your time, because we all know time is like the most precious commodity, right? Rob, you probably run out of time doing all of the things. I know I do. And as a former CFO for Coldwell Banker, Colorado, I probably oversaw 22 managers, and recruiting and retention was always at the top of the to-do list, but it's just hard to find time, right?
It is, absolutely. For sure. It's always Friday is my new slogan. I don't know what happens. It's just the week goes by like this, and all of a sudden it's Friday. And you got to, have a reset with the weekend and get ready to do it again. And obviously finding the time to do recruiting is very important, but that's, I think, where we were going to talk about more how it gets treated like a side project by a lot of people. I used to recruit realtors professionally with RE/MAX for half a decade. I became one of the top recruiters in Canada based off my success. And then I started this company just about a decade ago to help people recruit. And we did a lot of digital marketing for a long time. And it seems like, digital marketing isn't as time sensitive as actual outreach through phone. And so that's why we started, a couple of years ago, building a team of professional recruiters that can then do calls for people and set appointments and do follow-ups and that type of thing. Because when I was a recruiter, it was the most valuable thing I did, making the calls, setting appointments for either myself or the broker. And so that takes time, and if you're a manager or you're a broker owner or you're a salesperson who's supposed to be doing recruiting, you can be busy with a lot of other things. And so I think that's one of the things we want to talk about today, maybe a little bit, Paul, was time management.
So yeah, time management, and how do we high grade your time so you're focused on the most value added tasks that you can do. So it's all about making the most of your time, and how we at On Task and through our partnership with Pro Broker Agency here can deliver up the appointments, the leads for your target recruits. So you're not there chasing dead leads, and you're not digging up old lists, and you're not, making the 100 calls to get to 2 appointments, right? Let us do that work, queue it up through On Task for you. And that way, the time that you do spend on recruiting is the most valuable part of the equation, which is closing the deal, right?
Closing the deal, absolutely.
Right. Who better to close the deal than either the recruiter you have in your office or the managing broker to convey that message about the value add that you can bring to that agent, right? Whether it's training, whether it's marketing, whether it's just being surrounded by a culture where that agent can thrive. So you can explain that the best. But let us focus on the other 90% of the time that has to go into recruiting, which is, getting the leads scheduled to talk to you. And we can do that in a number of ways that we're gonna touch on here briefly. But we should probably kind of talk a little bit about our background, so they, so our group here knows we're somewhat qualified to do that. So. I'm kind of the man behind the curtain. Most of you know Michael Abeda. He's really the face out there in front of Realty Connection and On Task.
Great guy.
I wanted my 15 minutes of fame. So, so I'm the CEO. I'm the CEO here at Realty Connection. And as I mentioned a little earlier, I spent 3 years as a CFO for Coldwell Banker residential brokerages. That was for the Colorado. We had about 22 managing brokers, about 2,500 agents. And we always told our managers that your job was a 3-legged stool, right? You got to focus on the 3 most important things. Not like Curly says, the one thing. You actually had 3 things to focus on. And that was recruiting, retention, and then get your agents out there getting those listings, right? Those things. So that's kind of my background and my expertise, if you want to call it, in the real estate world. And Rob, why don't you give a little background on you?
Yeah, for sure. I had kind of finished up a corporate career in my early 20s, and I was looking for something that was in real estate because I was an advertising marketing guy with a bit of a design background and sales in there as well. But I got hired by a Remax office in a posh part of Vancouver to start doing their ad campaigns and design and things like that. And they said, well, you know, you seem like you've got a sales background. Why don't you try recruiting somebody? And I thought, well, why would you need to recruit somebody to a real estate office? Don't you have enough people in here already? You know, I didn't know that it was a thing, you know? And so I met with a guy that was looking to join Remax, and I met with him by myself. I still remember it. And his name was Clarence. And so we sat down, we talked about joining the office, and he just liked my vibe. He liked how I presented it. And I said, you know, at the end of the day, it is your business. You're the one who needs to make yourself successful. Any brand can help you with the tools, but, you know, you've got to do the legwork. And, you know, I used to try and scare people off, but with him, I was just really trying to make my first recruit. But in the same respect, I recruited him, and he had a very successful career there. He made a deal his first week. He sold an $875,000 townhome, and everyone thought that it was great that I had recruited someone. I thought, well, this is a fun gig because it's you know, it's growth, but you're also helping people with their careers, which I had a bit of a passion for in my corporate career, which was hiring and training salespeople. And so when I started doing that more often for Remax, I liked that. And then I, you know, built that multi-office group up about 30% before I was stolen by another group of Remax offices. And then I opened an office for them and filled it full of realtors. And then I decided, you know what, I'm never going to, you know, be the entrepreneur I want to be by building other people's offices just with one brand. And so I created a subscription service, you know, in 2012 and went on my own, and it worked well. And then, you know, a few years ago, we started hiring and training people to do the most valuable thing I did at Remax, which was the calls. At the end of the day, you know, being a phone rep before I became a recruiter was a good skill set to have, because you're going to have to call people and talk to them and sell them without selling. And I know that sounds ridiculous, but it's more than just a soft sell. You're building relationships. You know, very rarely did I ever find, you know, especially calling for Remax, advertising our price wasn't something that I definitely wanted to do on the phone because it was more expensive than the people I was trying to recruit. So right away, I wasn't trying to recruit on price. I was trying to build value in my systems and sell the broker on the vibe and the culture that was there, joining a place where there was producers and things like that. And so walking away with that, the person that I learned the recruiting gig from was probably one of the most aggressive recruiters that's maybe ever been in Canada for real estate. He's since retired, but everything was about recruiting. It was never a side project for him. It was either he was going to open houses to bug people during the week that were like agent opens, or we were doing calls all day, or we're doing meetings, or we're taking people out for lunch, or whatever we could do to just keep that recruiting ball rolling. And that was when I thought, you know, I found that very infectious and that energy to be very contagious. So that's why I think now, with moving forward, and now with, you know, meeting the CEO of an agency here in Vancouver, we're in Yaletown here. We've got a posh office downtown, and we've been here for a while now. It's, you know, we're really focused on developing people who can do these calls, do them well, do them efficiently and effectively, and get results for people that they're looking for. Because at the end of the day, calls take time. Plus, you've got to be up to be on the phone. Paul and I are both up right now because we're, you know, on camera, you know, and when the camera's off,
I would imagine, you know, selling's hard, but selling to someone who's in sales is even harder, right? Because they're going to be suspect immediately. That's why it's important to make that connection there, because, yeah, if you're just doing a generic call campaign, you know, a generic email drip campaign, yeah, that might get you some leads, it might get some conversions. But if you're selling a salesman, you really gotta build a rapport there. And I think, you know, with Rob and the training that he's done with his people, and the fact that, you know, when they call for you, there's a lot to touch here, and we're trying to keep it 30 minutes. But when he calls for you, he's not calling as the pro broker agency. So when you get on task and you subscribe to this executive recruiter, which we're calling a call services, all of the calls are made using a local number, right? It's not going to be a Vancouver number. It's going to be a local number. And the rep that is assigned to your account, so you're not going to have different people calling all month. It's going to be one person on your account calling with the local number as a person in your office, right? They're not representing themselves as some a general recruiter that's running out trying to get an appointment for you. They're representing them as if they work for you. And then all of this activity is captured in on task. So the calls that are logged are in on task. The appointments when they're made, be it, hey, please email this person, please call this person, or this person wants to schedule an appointment. Those of you who are on task clients understand that that'll end up on your dashboard in your inbox as a to-do item. And for those of you that have joined us that are not in on task, let me step back a moment and talk to you about the, what did I call it, Rob? The Trinity, the Trinity of recruiting.
The trifecta with the triangle.
Things always come in threes, right?
Yes.
So the Trinity of recruiting is, we've got our partnership with Teradata. That's Broker Metrics, right? They have all of the MLS data. We have a very unique relationship with Teradata where we are able to bring in all of that MLS data into our on-task CRM. And that provides a number of extremely powerful features, one of which is, you are calling on the most current information, right? We were talking about those outdated lists and, maybe these people are retired, maybe, they're, moved on to different businesses. Maybe they're a managing broker and you don't want to be calling them. Exactly. All of that information is updated via our relationship with Teradata and dumped into our system. So you get listings, you get latest closings, you get last 12 months of production, we bring in all of their social media stuff. Then on top of that, like I said, we now have this great relationship with the Pro Broker Agency where Rob can take that information. So you get all of the agents in your MLS. So if you got 10,000 agents in your MLS, you're getting 10,000 people in your recruiting dashboard. And then you can slice and dice and group all of those people. And Rob will work with you and say, okay, which group shall we focus on? And he will take that list of, let's say, 500 out of your recruiting dashboard, and then he'll work with it and make the calls, right? Then we also have an emailing service that I don't want to get into because we're going to run out of time. It's called On Task High Five Recruiter, where we actually will reach out and email those target people if they have an active listing or closing. But the point is, we got the best information, and then we got this great service through Rob, where we can personalize the calls and reach out to these individuals and do, like we said, the 90% of the work to get you those appointments. That's the game plan here. Let us help you make the most of your time. So.
Absolutely. And when it comes to doing focused calls like that, it was, again, something that people had asked us to do for years. They were, you do this great job of digital recruiting and everything like that. Why don't you do the calls? And so that was, I think, why we were just looking for better results for our clients over time and to have a client life cycle where people were really getting the best value for their dollar. And so when we started building the call center, of course, one of the first questions was, well, do we do it overseas? Do we start hiring people and turn on the tap at some place where we can just have an endless amount of recruiters at our disposal? And the answer became very quickly was no, because the communication on a call like this, like we were just talking about, when you're trying to sell a salesman, has to be so clear and fluid. And it can be a chat up at first. It might not even be a pitch, right? Like it might be just straight up questions about their business and how their day is going and things like that. And just to get them more comfortable and disarmed with the call, we found immediately that if we try to go offshore with anything like that, it wasn't going to happen. So all of our call center representatives actually live and work in Vancouver, BC, Canada here. They're trained at our office by one of our top recruiters for a full day of training. They get to sit and listen to how the calls are done. And then they learn how to do these daily reports. Obviously, we've been doing calls longer than we've been working with OnTask. So we have our own system, but it's nothing as fancy as OnTask, which is what we like about that. And so one of the things that we do on top of the OnTask calls is, let's say we do your calls for the day, and in that hour, we book 2 appointments. That's noted in OnTask, and you're going to get notifications in OnTask about those appointments, and they will be booked on your calendar, and you'll get a notification about that. But we also send this little blurb every day, just so that everyone knows, hey, you've got an appointment tomorrow at 2 o'clock. It's on your calendar. This is what we talked about. And just if you need any extra information, feel free to shoot me a text or call me, and that's one of the things we like about what we do now is that our clients get to build a relationship with the recruiter. It's not someone who's anonymous. You know, half of our people who do calls now are doing Zoom meetings, you know, to get to know the client. And so the client develops a better relationship with them. And so if anybody has any questions about that, I'm happy to chat more about that. But I just wanted to touch on your point there, Paul. Yeah.
And talking about questions, so we do have the chat box open.
Nice.
So, you know, feel free to type in any questions. I'm going to try to post in a link here, assuming I know what I'm doing. I'm not an IT expert by any means, but I'm going to try to post in a link here that'll take you to a site where you can get registered for OnTask. You can learn about the services in a little bit more detail. You can go to a calendar, I believe, right, Rob, and schedule time with you.
For sure. Yeah.
So,
if people would like to just chat with me, basically we're doing OnTask specialist training, one-on-ones now with people, because we've got several members of our recruiting team now who are trained on how to use OnTask. It can get you up and running really quickly, even jumpstart your efforts, so to speak, because at the end of the day, you may have had an OnTask account for a while and you've got that data from Teradata and you're not doing the outreach that you want to. It could be time to just start making that path forward into that direction and start actually getting someone to do the outreach.
Right. Now, I'm not seeing the link, so I'm just going to type in a link.
Well, if they go to our website, if they go to theprobroker.com.
So I'm going to type in a link here. Let's see how this works. So one site you can go to, okay, is this one. And that will talk to you a little bit about who we are and show you some videos on how OnTask works. And then what's the other one you have, Rob, that I can type in?
I was just going to send them to our website. Theprobroker.com is our website. And on the front page, there's 3 buttons there. One is to view our pricing, which is consistent with the pricing with Paul with OnTask. And then one is to book an appointment to talk with me. And you can actually go ahead and put your book an appointment there specifically for OnTask on our calendar. So our website has that availability.
Theprobroker.com. Okay, and I just got a message from Danny Frank. How are you, Danny? You've been a long time OnTask customer.
Hi, Danny. How's your day going?
You're on here. Welcome. So
thank you for coming.
Anyhow, so is anyone else seeing what I just typed in the chat box? Because it's to all panelists, so hopefully somebody's seeing that. If not, we'll figure.
It's theprobroker.com, or if you Google Pro Broker Agency, theprobroker.com will come up.
Right.
So super easy to find us. Again, my phone number is 604-868-6767. But you know, we're not done here. We got a couple more minutes to chat.
Yeah, we got some more time. So
for sure.
Again, the takeaways on this thing are we got to make the most of our time. We're all on a time pinch. And the more that Rob and I and Michael Abeda have talked about it, it's difficult for a manager unless you've got a hired dedicated recruiter. And even then, when you have a hired dedicated recruiter, you might want to high grade their task. But you really need to spend uninterrupted, focused time recruiting. And I'm not talking about just calling. I mean, you think about it. You got to identify the people. You got to get to know the people a little bit about who you're targeting. You need to, craft your emails. Then you got to follow up on emails. You got to call if you're going to call. It's not like you just call somebody and you schedule an appointment. Sometimes it takes 2 or 3 times to call. That is a tremendous amount of time. And if you don't have that time, and if your recruiter you have out there working for you does not have that time, you can unload that on us. And as with OnTask, all these services are month to month. So Pro Broker, they'll start calling for you. Like I said, everything's run through OnTask.
Yep.
But you're not getting locked up into an annual agreement. And one of the things you consider about, which I guess we should say how much it costs. It's $800 a month to add that on OnTask. That gets you 20 hours of calls. Okay.
Every day we're doing an hour of calls.
Right.
And for that, statistically wise, I noticed there was a question in there, Paul, you might want to have a look at, but just to touch on that 800. So we're looking to get, so we're going to do an hour every day. We're going to get a report every day, and we want to get 3 to 5 appointments per week for an hour a day of calls. So 3 to 5 appointments per week, we're booking in-persons, we're booking people that are on Zoom, we're booking phone as well, interviews. But, if we're going to get that kind of number for a client, then they should be getting 1 to 3 recruits pretty easily per month with that kind of uptake. So, the stats are there. We are pretty used to looking at it. Did you find that question that someone had just put in the chat?
I did. I don't quite understand it. What do you deliver? A name that is willing to speak to me. What do you do? So, Stephen, can you expand on that a little bit? Let me know exactly so we can answer your question specifically.
Maybe my statistics there is what he was looking for.
But again, Rob will say, 3 a month, 5 a month. But don't forget, these aren't just leads. Okay, these are people that we've already talked to and vetted through. So these are people that want to talk to you, right?
For sure.
This isn't some, hey, we're just scheduling an appointment with you, and then you get on the phone with the targeted agent and they're like, what are we supposed to be talking about? No, they know that they're going to talk to you because you want them in your office. So, these 3 to 5 people a month, I mean, they're ready to move, right? They're not thinking about moving. They're not, asking a few silly questions. They are interested in moving and they want to talk to you. That's what gets queued up. And some people might say, well, $800 sounds like a lot. However, you think, what does it take for you to hire someone in your office, train them in your office, get them in on task, making all of these focused phone calls. You're going to be spending a heck of a lot more per month on that. And then it's not like you can say, hey, after 30 days, I'm going to let you go, right?
And that's the other thing that Danny Frank was just putting in there, is it a month-to-month agreement? So when I started the company, everything was kind of on a month-to-month agreement as it was to begin with. But then when we started doing the calls, I felt, after working in a high pressure real estate environment, for a few years, 5 years at the offices I was at, and seeing how, performance atmosphere breeds success, I started doing that with our recruiters, because at the end of the day, if somebody starts doing calls for a broker owner, they know right away that it's a 30 day, they've got 20 hours basically to get that client to continue on, right? And so they've got those 20 business days to wow them, and that's we talk about that in training when we train our recruiters. We talk about it on a regular basis with them, but for the most part, they get it right away because they know that if they're not producing, that client could cancel, and then they lose that hour, and then it affects their income. And it's all really bottom line stuff that we don't have to get into and micromanage with them. It's like, are you getting results? Are your clients happy? Great. We will leave you alone, and it really, we're not trying to necessarily breed little entrepreneurs, but kind of I am, because they get to work remotely. They get to run their own business. Some of them send us PayPal invoices now, which is really cool. And they're setting up sole proprietorships, which I love. But at the end of the day, they are focused on being recruiters and making these calls and making them effective, and that there's a performance needed there. It's not something where our clients sign a 6-month agreement and the person who's going to do the calls is like, oh, great, I get 2 hours a day for the next 6 months, no matter what. It's like, no, you've got 30 days to make it happen. And even before then, in the first week, we really strive for that first week to really hit hard, because it's a first impression with the client. If they're not getting a couple of appointments that first week and some good news and a good vibe with their recruiter, that reflects poorly on us, and that might jeopardize the relationship. And everybody knows how long it can take to develop a sales relationship and get a client and work with people, and especially in the real estate industry. You don't want that to go sideways because of some miscommunication or something like that. The number one problem we have, Paul, and we've talked about this before, is people ghosting our appointments. That is a huge issue with us, where a broker owner will sign up, they'll assign someone in the office to do the calls, and then we start booking appointments for that person, and this person does not want to do that work, and it's just more work for them. And my own broker owner's like, what's going on with all these appointments? Why aren't you, and that is really weird, because it should be the other way around, where they're upset about not being any appointments, but it's really more or less, and so we find that's maybe like 1 in 20 clients, these days, because people value the service. They understand how seriously we take it. And obviously it's their bottom line. at the end of the day. And we want people to earn that back right away.
And so when you, again, those of you that have On Task already understand what the contact card looks like. But so boom, Rob has scheduled an appointment for you. It's in your to-do box. You open up the contact card, and what is it going to show and what is it going to say? It's not just going to throw out a name, Paul Wiesner, please call. No, the contact card in On Task has all of the information that we think is critical for you to carry on a meaningful conversation with that targeted agent. So you're going to have notes in there from Rob, right? Calls,
sure.
notes that he puts in there. It has all the MLS data that we thought was key to bring in. So you open up the contact card on Paul Wiesner, I'm using myself. They'll say, here's his last 12 months of production. Here is his latest listings, right? Or current listings. Here is a list of the last 30 days of closing activity. And you can actually click a button to get more. Here's his social media links if we're able to find them for you. That's all brought in automatically. Here's his cell phone. Here's his email. Here's the company that he works for. So you're not just getting a name and a please call. You are getting this whole contact card of information about this person. And the more information you have allows a number of great things to happen. One, you can look at it and say, I don't know if I even want this person in my office, right? I mean, hopefully you vetted that out from the beginning. Two is you can look at it, and when you have a conversation with that person, it's much more meaningful to say, you know, hey, Rob, congratulations on closing that multi-million-dollar house. That is,
thanks, Paul.
That is that's my wheelhouse. That's my office's wheelhouse, and that's the area we work. We'd sure love to have you come in here. So that closes the deal. And again, to kind of come full circle here in our 30 minutes of time.
We just had a question there from Paul.
Another question.
Stephen
Who makes the calls?
So
well,
Stephen,
you might be thankful it's not me. I'm not.
It's not Paul. It's not me. But like we were saying, I used to do the heavy recruiting calls all day, and now I just do calls for my company. But we have a trained staff of recruiters here in Vancouver, BC, Canada, that make your calls. And when someone, like we were saying earlier, just to really clarify this, when someone starts making your calls, they're dedicated to your account for the long term, because the more they get to identify with you, learn about your brand, learn about your vibe and your culture. And when they're making those calls, calling from the local number, identifying themselves as a member of the team, it just lands the appointment so much better, as opposed to calling from a number from Hawaii to call somebody in New York. You know what I mean? Having that local number, and also having someone that knows how to do the job, that speaks English, that's in Canada, that was grown, that grew up here, and has been trained by a professional recruiter, both by myself and our top recruiter. It really gives us a leg up on pretty much anybody else that's doing this. So that's who does the calls.
During the onboarding process, they're going to talk to their recruiter.
Right? You get to meet your recruiter, you get to know her. Yeah.
If that mix isn't there for you, well, then we can get you a different caller, correct?
Yeah.
Right?
Yeah, for sure.
So you'll get to talk to your dedicated caller before they even start making the calls. And
meet and greets.
Right, exactly.
Absolutely, yeah.
And if that doesn't give you a warm fuzzy, or if that just doesn't seem like someone you want out there making the calls, well, there's someone else in the wings for you. So yeah, the calls, you will get to vet who's making the calls for you.
Yeah, they're all very used to working with multiple clients, because at the end of the day, we do this service as an hourly basis. Some people buy 2 or 3 or 4 hours. I mean, we have some clients that they buy almost a full day, but for the most part, people buy 1 hour at a time. And we like that, because then the associates that do those calls aren't just necessarily calling the same place every day. And it actually keeps them fresh. They look forward to changing their clients during the day, and then they get really good at developing that relationship with the client. And there might be additional back and forths between the client and the caller, where the recruiter is going to be sending texts. Hey, this guy really wants to talk today. It's a super hot lead. Let's not wait. He's talking to another office tomorrow. And when we start uncovering those pain points or those really interesting leads, and the Glengarry leads, as Paul and I call them, to make a weird Glengarry Glen Ross reference. Coffees for closers, of course.
So
recruiting,
it's
the same thing.
Let's wrap it up here. So this is our first. We're hoping to have one of these every month.
Every month.
We're going to switch up the topics. We're going to switch it up, try to make it fun, because if you can't have fun at work, then why in the hell are we all working?
Exactly.
www.ontask, RealtyTaskRecruiter.com. Remember that, or www.theprobroker.com to get a hold of us. And yeah, we're happy to send you more information. We're happy to talk to you one-on-one. And I don't see any more questions.
Super happy that everybody came down today. Thank you so much for taking the time out of your day to come to our first podcast. We really, really thank you for that. Absolutely.
Yeah. And this is recorded, so we will put it out there on our On Task Facebook page. Rob will post it out there somewhere as well. And
absolutely.
You can, you know, I know you enjoy watching us, so, you know, you can take the recording and watch it all you want. So,
and yes, and don't forget to give me a call. It's my number is 604-868-6767. 604-868-6767. Easy to get a hold of me, or shoot me a text and we'll pick a time to talk. I'm always talking about recruiting all day long. It's all I do. I love it. And that's why Paul and I are partners now, and Terradatum introduced us. So it's a trifecta. Absolutely.
All right.
It's good.
Thank you, everybody.
Thank you so much. Take care.